one. Good morning. What is going on, guys? We are back at it again. We are Man Stuff Outdoors, and this is the Dead Silence Podcast, episode number 2. We are sitting here 2 weeks since our last podcast, the first episode. I think it came out pretty well. Me and Chris just got done putting the finishing touches on it last night, so it will obviously be out before you guys listen to this. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and hope you guys had a very happy Thanksgiving. This is 2 weeks later. We took last week off because we were all going home for Thanksgiving. Did a lot of hunting, did a lot of activities that were fun, and we're going to talk about them. Did you guys have a good Thanksgiving?
I did.
The best one.
The best one yet?
The best one yet.
What happened?
Great turkey.
Lots of turkey.
Lots of deep fried turkey.
Is that it? Is that the
No,
best
that's really
Thanksgiving you've ever had?
It's the
You had
best
a turkey?
Thanksgiving I've ever had.
How about you, Chris? How was your Thanksgiving? The best ever? Did you eat turkey?
I ate turkey, but I don't think I'm going to call it the best one I ever had. I spent a whole lot of time in the woods, so
Yeah, me too.
it was a good Thanksgiving.
Awesome. So I think we left off last time as far as the hunting story goes. We left off with my bear hunt. That was essentially the main focus, and I think Brett's deer hunt. But what we didn't get into, Chris, was your hunt. You killed a 7-pointer a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now.
Yep.
And you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it's the second week of muzzleloader season, Saturday morning. I drove back to Virginia to hunt, and well, you were out there hunting the same day.
I was there as well.
So I was talking to Dad before we went, and trying to figure out where the best place for me to be was. And I had intended on walking up. We've got that one stand down on that one section of the property,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
and I was going down towards the creek, and I was going to walk up that ridge to that stand. I walk in before daylight. I get close to the barn, and I start jumping deer. Now
Meanwhile, it was cold. It was cold that morning. It was like the first actual cold morning.
Yeah, no, it was. I think when I got out of the truck and started walking, it was something to the tune of 20, 21 degrees.
Yeah, I was freezing. You came to the house earlier that morning, as you guys oftentimes do, and I was like, boys, it's gonna be a cold one this morning.
No, and so anyway, I'm walking towards this barn, and you cross the creek after you get past the barn, and turn left and go up this really steep ridge to get to the stand. And I start jumping deer before I get to the barn, before I get to the creek.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, in my eyes, when you start jumping deer and they don't spook really hard, depending on how they react when you're walking in, if you're starting to jump deer, you need to find a place to sit down, because they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, the deer wanted to be there, and you scared them away, they'll come back. So I decided to, as I was walking in, I thought, well, I'm not going to walk up this ridge. I'm going to sit down right at the edge of this barn. And
probably a good decision.
No, it was definitely a good decision. I'm probably going to do it again. So I sat down, and got my backpack out, or took my backpack off, got all of my stuff out, was trying to dig out my binoculars and, my rangefinder and get my coveralls on because it was cold, and trying not to make too much noise. Well, I look up. I'd been there maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't long. It just gotten daylight.
Maybe 15 minutes. And I look up, and a buck runs by me, crosses the creek, and gets on this broom sage bank in front of me. And I couldn't make it out. It was still too dark to make out exactly what this buck was, but I knew it was a buck. And I thought, well, okay, today's going to be a good day. So I get settled in, and I reach over. I needed something to shoot off of. I didn't have anything to. I don't have bipods on the muzzleloader. It's.
Yeah.
I was looking for something to try to support the gun because I was sitting in an old beat up chair, and I didn't have anything to shoot off of. So I found a tobacco stick and propped my gun up on it.
Best shooting stick I've ever heard of.
It was a good shooting stick. It really was. And so I'm watching this buck. I can just barely make out that he's a deer. Well, he steps in behind one of those cedar trees on that broom sage bank, and I lose him for just a second. I just couldn't see him. Well, in that second, it's amazing. Sometimes this happens. In that second, it got daylight. Just like that.
Yeah.
Just got daylight. And I saw him bounce out into the field, ran across the field, and stopped in behind behind a wild cherry tree. Well, there was another buck came out, and I could see him, and I saw his right side, and his right side had a little bit of palmation on it.
Yeah.
So
and for you guys that don't know, palmation, correct me if I'm wrong, a palmation is like resembling the shape of a hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking, how on the people who are watching the video can see this, but
for the people
you
not
look-
watching the video, he's pointing to his hand in a distinct manner.
if you look between your index finger and your thumb, this webbing, this little piece of this little flap of skin here,
Yeah.
this will actually develop in between the horns of the deer, in between the antlers. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's what they're calling palmation. That's why they call it that. But I saw his right side. His right side looked really big. Keep in mind, it's early. I've only seen one other deer.
The whole year. Like, this is the first buck you've seen all year.
This is the first buck I've seen all year, the first rack buck that I've seen all year. And he runs out, and he meets this other buck behind the wild cherry tree.
Now, how big was the other buck?
I couldn't tell. I was really trying to see how big the other buck was, but they started fighting. So they hit and they fought, and I've seen bucks. I've spent a lot of time in the woods, guys, and I've seen bucks bump and try to bump each other off. Just they'll spar, hit and run, hit and run, hit and run. These guys were fighting. I've never seen two bucks until that day actually fight. Well, the 7-pointer that I shot whipped the other buck, so I thought, well, he's got to be bigger. I couldn't see the other one, so I thought, well, he just won, so he's got to be bigger, and he was standing broadside at about 85 yards, and I drilled him. So I get up to him, and I look at him, and I had a little bit of ground shrinkage. Just a little bit.
Oh. Well, he didn't have a brow tine, right?
Yeah, he didn't have a brow tine on the left side.
So he would have been an 8. Turned up
Would have been an 8.
Turned up to be a 7. Had the palmation going on. So, technically, as far as genetics go, not the best genetic makeup. Because the palmation and the lack of a brow tine is kind of a defect.
Right.
But
the palmation, you kind of want to leave a little bit of that, the palmation, and that's the second buck I've killed on that property that had a little bit of palmation.
Which I'm sure he passed on. If he was fighting with another deer like that, he was definitely out there chasing those before that.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, this is pre-rut, right at the beginning of the rut, so he may or may not have bred.
Yeah. But he was 3.5 year old. He definitely bred some does, you know,
Yeah.
previous years. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, very good deer. Did how many pounds of meat do you think you got off of him?
Ooh. Well, he was a big-bodied rascal. The
He
problem
was a big
was, is
body. If you guys
uh,
want to see a picture of this deer, you can check it out on Instagram at Ripping Lips TV.
that's a
Holla,
good plug.
holla.
That's a good plug. That's a selfless, shameless plug. That's a good one. I
Gotta
love
get
it.
them in when you can, right?
Yeah. I don't know. He was hard to drag out, but I couldn't use when I shot him. Of course, I shot him with a 50 caliber muzzleloader, so
Yeah.
the bullet does quite a bit of damage. But when the bullet went in, and anybody that's listening, when you shoot a deer, I beg you to do this. Chase the bullet channel when you're skinning the deer. See where it goes. See what happened. Because when you understand the way the bullet reacted, you understand better where shot placement needs to
Yes,
be and
absolutely.
why you got to have good shot placement. So when you're skinning your deer or gutting your deer, chase where the bullet went and see the path through the deer.
Mhm.
So when I was skinning the deer, well, actually, I knew it when I gutted it. The bullet split, so it hit just the back corner of his right shoulder and split. And when the bullet split, half of it went through his left shoulder, destroyed the meat on his left shoulder, and half of it went out his neck.
So he's quartered
So-
away from you when you shot him?
He was quartering away, just barely. I mean, I don't know what degree angle I didn't
Yeah.
take out of,
Did you what are the
but he
You
was
get your
quartering
retractor
away.
out?
Yeah, I didn't get a protractor out.
That would have been amazing.
we would have got breath out.
I'm gonna
breath out
I'm gonna
there.
start carrying a protractor around when I'm hunting.
Yes, so we can get our angles exactly correct for the podcast because our listeners want to know the exact angle. But yeah, good deer. I thought it was a good deer. It'd been a few years since you'd killed a buck, I believe, if I'm
Mhm.
correct. And I think that if you go a time and you struggle, you got to take what you can get. And I think that was a good deer to harvest. I don't know that it would have necessarily gotten bigger the next year if you would have let it go, but I do know that it was a good deer and it's going to feed you guys.
Yeah.
Because you guys,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big deer. You guys got some big back straps off that thing. So,
Yeah.
that thing's going to have some beautiful backstrap steaks.
Mm.
So it sounds delicious to me. Yeah. Do you remember what day that was? I'm trying to get my timeline in order.
Hang on.
Was that a Wednesday or was that a Saturday? Or it would have been Thursday or Saturday? Because it wasn't. Go ahead.
It was a Saturday for sure because I had to work. That would have been okay. So last week, the 10th.
Okay. So what I had done the previous 2 days, because I was off from work the 2 days before that, is I was after the deer. We had one deer on our property, and it was a giant. My dad and Chris's dad they'd been out kind of scouting the weekend before, and they saw this massive deer, and both of them were kind of shook up about it and talking about how big it was. And I was like, okay, I got to go out there and hunt for that deer. Like, that's the deer I'm going to hunt for. So I went to the stand and sat in that thing for over 2 days. I sat in it. I did 2 full day hunts. So that so Thursday I went out there and sat for 12 hours. And about 10:30 on Thursday, I saw this 8-pointer. I mean, a good shooter 8-pointer, came in perfect range. I didn't get it on camera Unfortunately, my camera wasn't completely set up to where it needed to be at that time. Conveniently, though, seeing that deer, opened my eyes to the fact, like, hey, you got to get your camera in the right position, or you're not going to get this on film.
Hey man, I gave you a good camera to use.
Yeah, I've been borrowing Chris's camera because it's got a little bit more zoom than mine. But yeah, I'm hunting this deer hard, and so it's 2 days in. I've seen a handful of does. I've seen a couple scrub bucks. That one 8-pointer that was for sure shooter quality 8-pointer. And I almost harvested that buck because I was trying to make up my mind, like, okay, what do I do? And he steps in, he's going, and he's about to get out of sight, and I kind of grunt right as he's going out of sight, but he doesn't stop. So I'm thinking that if he stopped, I probably would have shot him. But anyways, glad I didn't, because on hour 23 and a half, so day one I was there for 12 hours, didn't see really much anything. Day two, go in, sat there all day. It's 30 to 15 minutes before dark, and there's this doe pops up over the hill, and you guys should be able to see the YouTube video. Should be out by the time this podcast is out. So make sure you go check out how this went down. YouTube.com/RippinLipsTV. Another shameless plug. But these this doe came over the hill and was walking through these two pine trees, and then behind her I see a deer, and then all of a sudden, and the whole time, just rewind a little bit. My dad was calling this the white horn deer. He said, "You'll know that's the deer when you see it, because you'll see those white horns." And he said, "You'll see the horns before you see the deer." And I didn't see the horns before I saw the deer, but I did see those white horns afterwards. And he was a giant. I don't know how many points he was. It's really hard to tell from the video. In the video, he honestly looks like a 6-pointer. But if he was a 6-pointer, he was the biggest 6-pointer I've ever seen in my life, because he was massive. His horns were way out past his ears, maybe 16 inch high, and probably a 20-inch spread. So he was a good deer, good quality deer. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there he is. I said, I've been hunting hard for 23 and a half hours, and there he is. So I got the camera set up and rolling, and was recording him walk behind this pine tree, and had the camera set up in the direction that he was going, in the perfect spot. And he stepped out right in the center frame of that camera. And I put my scope on him, pulled the trigger, and then immediately felt regret. It was like somebody had punched me in the stomach, because I knew that I put a bad shot on that deer. Go ahead.
Well, to those people that haven't, and I don't know if anybody would be listening to this if they haven't been at least hunting a couple of times.
I'm sure there are. I mean, Brett is relatively new to hunting. I mean, there's definitely people that are going to listen to this, hopefully, and this is really the purpose, is people that are beginner hunters, or have never gone before, and are trying to get into it. Hopefully we can be an inspiration to get out there in the woods and start hunting.
That's right.
Eventually I would like to make a couple episodes dedicated to intro to hunting. We'll do that down the road, but I this is the goal, is for beginners and experienced hunters to be able to just kind of enjoy a couple hunter and fishermen shooting the bull.
Right. Well, sorry, I just cleared my throat right into the mic. Um, the, uh, the one of the important things you gotta note when it comes to missing is you got to make sure that everybody understands the factors that go into this. So you've got environmental factors. So you've got wind,
rain,
you've got rain, you've got
cold.
temperature, you've got obstructions, physical obstructions in the way
Yes.
of whatever the shot is. If you're shooting through a whole lot of broom sage, sometimes that can deflect a bullet. Um, if you miss and hit a limb, if you didn't see it, a lot of the time between the end of the gun and where the target is or the ultimate goal is, there'll be something that you can't see in the scope, because especially if you're using a higher magnification scope, sometimes it'll blur it out and you won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
It's important to know you've got environmental factors, you've got mental factors. So your hands are shaking so bad that you can't hardly hold the gun.
And it's and especially if it's cold, because
Mm-hmm.
your trigger finger is stiff. All your body, you've been sitting in the same. I was sitting in the same spot, not moving for 11 and a half hours previous to this shot. These are all excuses. These
Well,
these
the
are not reasons. These are excuses, because the reason I missed is lack of practice,
yeah.
lack of dedication. Essentially, I wasn't good enough. And
Well,
there's no one on this planet that's more upset about not being good enough than I am. The last thing that I want to do is put a bad shot on an animal. And to say that it happens is BS in my opinion, because some people it doesn't happen to.
well, no, I don't think that's true. I think it happens to everybody, but I think it can be mitigated. I think it can be avoided with the right kind of preparation. So one thing, and this goes back to one thing the three of us have in common is wrestling.
Yeah,
Um,
just so you guys know out there in the interwebs, we all three were called. We essentially know each other. Me and Chris have known each other since high school. Our dads were friends, but we met Brett in college. We were on the wrestling team together. All three of us wrestled in college. Uh, I don't know if you guys care about that, but just a little background history. Go ahead.
right. Well, the one thing the three of us have in common is wrestling, and the one thing that I think wrestling brings to this is the preparation. So if you've got a technique that you keep getting beat with, that's what you're going to drill.
That's right.
That's what you're going to drill. So, Richard, you just got beat.
You got beat, man.
I got beat.
So you got to drill.
1,000
Well,
repetitions.
And
Yeah.
let me go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a rundown, because I made mistakes after. I made big mistakes after the shot. So I knew as soon as I pulled the trigger that it was a bad shot. The doe ran off, the deer ran behind her. They both ran uphill, which you put as much merit as you want in that. But usually, if the deer turns and runs uphill, usually he's not hit good. And to be completely honest, I don't know. I definitely grazed him, which I feel terrible about. But what I did wrong is I waited 20 minutes and then I went looking, and I shouldn't have. I should have just let it go. But you've anticipated this moment for so long and visualized it the entire time that you're in the stand over and over. You're visualizing, what am I going to do if a buck comes out? Okay, what am I going to do if he comes from this angle? What am I going to do if he comes from this angle? And you're thinking about all these scenarios in your head all day long. And sometimes it happens, and most of the time it doesn't happen. So I got a little bit antsy, and I started going out there looking for blood. Didn't find any blood. Called Dad on the phone, and by this point it's completely dark. And he came out there, and we were looking for blood, and we probably should have left the dog at home, but we had the dog with us, and I guess the dog caught scent of some blood or something, caught scent of an animal in the area, and our dog Shep takes off down the hill in a tear, and he's barking, he is going, he's down there rustling in the leaves. I mean, and he gets down to the bottom of the hill there, and in the creek, and you just hear him baying something, and I feel pretty confident that he was down there baying that deer in the creek, and you heard a little skirmish, and you heard something bigger than Shep running. So we really made a mistake by pushing that deer, because if I did hit him poorly, he could have laid right there in that creek overnight and died. But you know, we after that we backed off. We went home. I didn't sleep a wink that night. Felt sick to my stomach. Just playing the scenario, looking at the footage, trying to find something to go on, some kind of hope. But went out the next morning and walked around for probably 4 or 5 hours. Didn't hunt that morning. Just essentially woke up at daylight and walked around until lunchtime looking for any kind of sign. Probably walked 10, 15 miles looking for this deer through you know, overgrown fields and through woods and across creeks, up bluff walls. I mean, looked everywhere for this deer. Every nook and cranny of the farm, we were looking for sign. Didn't find any sign whatsoever, and didn't find the deer. And there's a thing that hunters go through, and I think a lot of hunters experience this, and it's kind of a self-loathing thing, where you were in that moment, you had that opportunity, and you blew it. And maybe I'm being hard on myself, but I've got to be hard on myself in this situation, because when we're out there playing God, as I like to say, you know, you've got to make sure you're right. This is a life and death situation. The last thing you want to do is make something suffer overly suffer. We're trying to ethically kill animals here in the most humane way possible, and you know, sometimes it doesn't happen, but you know, we really screwed up by chasing that deer out in the creek. I don't know if I hit him good. I don't know if I hit him at all. There's no evidence that I hit that deer whatsoever. So Shep could have just ran into that doe down there hiding and bumped it from maybe a bed or something. But you know, we had zero luck finding any kind of evidence to support that I hit that deer. And you know, it's disappointing. Had a lot of things going. So the next morning, after, you know, we were done looking for the deer and kind of gave up the search 15 miles later, and I'm still just as upset as when I figured, you know, walking 15 miles would kind of take the stress off, but I was essentially just as upset. So I'm going back and trying to figure out, you know, everything that I did wrong. Making sure the gun was sighted in. So I go to the exact same spot, and I put a target where that deer was. And as soon as I put my rifle on the rest where I'd shot from, me and Dad both, we saw that it probably had gone through some briars. There were some briars hanging up just a little higher than I had anticipated. And that's why when you were there, when you are in your stand, you need to be looking around all day. And this is what I didn't do. You need to be looking around all day on, okay, shooting angles. And I should have known that the shooting angle, the way this deer walked out, I should have known that I wasn't going to be able to shoot it from the position that I was in. I was going to have to elevate a little bit, because there were some briars right in front of the stand. And I think I went through them, so I could have hit those briars. when I pulled the trigger, I didn't feel very confident in the shot, but I felt like I maybe had rushed the shot because, I'd been filming all day, all weekend, trying to find this deer. This was the deer I was hunting, and he was standing dead center in my camera, and with my crosshairs on him. So yeah, so I took the shot again, and it wasn't the gun, it was me, and that's a very disappointing feeling to know that it was my fault, and
But that's another thing that you got to do is you got to validate what you're seeing, what you've done. So the one thing you did right is check your gun.
Mm-hmm.
If again, if you've got a theory about something that's broken, the way to find out is to test it. So like I said, the one thing you did right is test your gun, shoot your gun, and make sure that the gun was on. And then it told you what you need to practice. Told you what you need to do. It told you that the bad shot came from you, which is, again, it's kind of a terrible answer, but sometimes
okay.
it does happen.
Yeah, you can be honest with me. I suck. It's okay.
No. You can't be self-deprecating here. You have to be.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's not. I suck. Like, oh, I suck. I want to give up. It's I suck. Like, I need to do better. Like, I want to push through and get better, and hopefully have that never happen again.
Well, chances are it will happen again.
Yeah, I mean,
I've missed.
Yeah, I mean, everyone.
if you shoot enough,
every hunter can tell is no one. There is not a hunter on this planet that hasn't missed or put a bad shot on an animal.
Well, there's
I
not
haven't
a
missed.
there's not a hunter that's been hunting as long as you and I have.
True.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
So what do you think the strategy is here? Like, do you think you should go out, take some advanced long range rifle courses?
No,
I think that's a good thing. We have guys who teach these courses that were trained by our military, right? They're the best in the world.
Absolutely.
Well, why not go do these things, right?
Definitely training couldn't hurt. I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think the main thing with me is, I should know. In my mind, I should know how to shoot, but I don't practice shooting nearly as much as I should. So that is the issue: lack of practice.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put your repetition in. Any sport, you can be Barry Bonds if he doesn't hit baseballs regularly. He's going to be rusty when he goes to hit a baseball. The greatest hitter, arguably in the history of the game, and if he doesn't practice, he's going to struggle. And it's just being honed in with your equipment, being honed in with your weapon. You have to feel 100% comfort, in my opinion.
Richard, just for future reference, I am a trained rifle instructor.
I know, man. We're gonna get into something.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know this, Chris.
Yeah,
Chris
I
has got a gun that will shoot a mile, literally.
I've got a couple that'll shoot a mile. You've got a gun that'll shoot a mile. You just don't know it.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't wait. We're gonna for sure get into that once it gets a little warmer, and we're gonna definitely bring that up on the. My alarm.
Is that your uh-oh alarm?
My uh-oh alarm just went off. I would be 35 minutes late to this podcast if I'd have woke up to that alarm.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing to note is what time we're recording this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For you guys that, care, it is, we start these things at 5:30 in the morning before work. We're just trying to get a good start on the day, a little cup of coffee with the boys in the morning.
Brett, you got to tell us about that mug.
Yeah, so here's the mug of the day, ladies and gentlemen. This one is "The Force is Strong with Us," and it has a little button on top, and when you push it, oh, my battery died. Look at that. I used it too much today.
Perfect.
It mixes your coffee for you. That little thing in the bottom spins, and it
Wow.
creates a little coffee tornado.
Coffee nado.
It's one of
Is
the.
that like a
my son
shark?
got me this.
Is that like
It's
a
one of the
sharknado,
greatest-
but a coffee nado?
Yes, a coffee nado.
What is
It has alligators in it or something.
Uh,
Richard, what is a Sharknado?
have you not heard of the movie Sharknado?
Well.
1, 2, 3. I think they're on like Sharknado 5 at this point.
Yeah.
It's
Now, to be honest, Sharknado 3 was quite impressive. It was.
So there's these
Somehow I don't believe you.
there's these movies. It's about these, and I don't know why they call it a Sharknado, because it's literally a hurricane. It should be a sharkicane, but
There's some tornadoes in there.
But so the idea is the tornado picks these sharks up from the ocean and carries them to land, and then just starts throwing sharks. At
Throwing
people.
sharks. It's the greatest thing on the planet.
Not. Yeah, that's all that needs to be said about that.
Yeah.
What are you still with Big Brown Mug, Chris? Is that your mug of the week?
Yeah. I got Brown Beauty with me again.
Brown Beauty. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I guess I'll show mine. Mine is real hot yoga,
Ooh,
real
that's
fitness,
spicy.
real results.
Are you into hot yoga?
Yeah.
I've never taken a hot yoga. Well, we did hot yoga in college, but I've never taken.
Well, that's different. That's
We did P98.
Did
yoga.
we? I
Yeah,
don't-
we did P98.
It wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't hot yoga,
Yeah,
right?
but the wrestle room was hot.
Oh, okay, that's true. That's true.
I just thought that was 630 plyometrics, man. I didn't think that was like considered hot yoga. That
Yeah,
was
that's what people call hot yoga. I mean, our like warm up. That's what hot yoga is.
all right.
downward dog.
Downward dog.
Downward dog.
Good times. But yeah, I mean that's really all I want to say about that hunt. At least was I definitely learned some. Had the deer. It's really disappointing when it's the deer that you've been hunting. It's the deer. It's not just a random coincidence. It's like you were going after that particular deer and you blew it. But it's okay. You learn from it. It hasn't deterred me. I've been hunting really hard. Next week we'll get into more of what's been going on with herd management on the farm, and give you an update on some meat processing tips and tricks that I've picked up here in the past few weeks. And I made about 25 pounds of summer sausage. And how does that summer sausage taste, Chris?
It's I don't know what the word is. It's so good, or let me rephrase. It's so bad that you should get rid of all of it and hand it all to me. I need to make this stuff go away. I'll do you a favor. I'll take care of all of the summer sauces that you have. You should give it all to me, and I'll make it all disappear.
No, I need to try this stuff, Richard.
Oh, it's delicious, Brett. The thing about it is when you come up again to hunt
This weekend.
bring all that burger.
Oh, I got lots of burger. I have some defrosted right now. I'm about to make a chili tonight.
Listen, you don't just for the record. I don't want to get too much into this, but make sure you add some pork fat to that burger, or it's not going to taste good. So,
Of course.
Yeah, you gotta add. You gotta have a little bit deer.
You
so
need some good fat in there. Deer has no fat. So.
yeah, 20%,
Put some fat in
20%
there.
deer pork is the standard. I use 30, or not deer pork.
Deer pork?
Deer pork. Well, that is a new animal
That's a new
species. So
But yeah, 20% pork. I go with 30. Yeah, you won't be mad about it. So
you can do it.
How was your Thanksgiving, Brett? Did you get any outdoor activities done?
Actually, I did absolutely nothing outside. I just, sat inside.
Not very,
some,
not very man stuff outdoors like.
No,
of you.
no. I did get in my Jeep. I have a Jeep that 92 XJ, and played around in that dude a little bit.
So you
went
did do
off-roading.
some stuff outdoors. You went
I
off-roading.
did some stuff
Like,
outdoors.
that
Yeah.
counts.
Well, I mean, I just remembered that
That's
actually
part
happened.
of the lifestyle, my man.
Yeah. There you go. Did some outdoors things.
How was the
That's fun,
off-roading
man.
scene
Off-roading's
in
good.
East Tennessee?
It's good. It's not like mudding, like they have here in South Carolina,
Yeah.
South Kakalaki. It's more distinguished rock crawling.
Is it distinguished? I like your tone on that one.
Yeah.
So I've got this image of Brett in this Jeep with a tie.
We need to make a video ASAP.
Yeah, we do.
Distinguished
I have some video
gentleman
actually
rock
from
crawl.
the
Sweet. I
from the
need to-
trails.
I
It's
need to-
nice.
I need to send that
The
to me.
XJ's
I'll
a
throw a
beast.
little-
You guys need to come play in that section of the East Tennessee.
Have you got some places to go off-roading and stuff?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Now, where do you go? Is it
Miles.
public land or
It's exist.
you're not going to let the secret out?
No.
You've got
of
a,
course
secret
not. That's a
lease?
locals only.
Secret lease type deal? The owner
There's
doesn't know
a
about?
place. There exists a place that you can go. That's
Right.
fun and free.
You'll have to take me to this place. And
That
we'll have to
everyone
keep it a
goes
We'll have
to.
to keep it a secret together.
We could say it's public land.
Okay, we'll assume it is.
I've been that's cool.
Speaking of public land, I found some. Definitely going to do some hunting in Tennessee next year. Never hunted in Tennessee before, but I'm not gonna get into it this year just because the season is winding down, and I haven't scouted, and I don't want to just go into the woods blind, and I don't know who's been in there hunting, and I don't want to disrupt what they've got going on this year. But next year, there's some WMAs, wildlife management areas around the state, and it's essentially free hunting property for all of us. I want to start promoting this public land idea. That's land that I pay for, you pay for, we all pay for it. It's ours. We can share it, and we can use this resource to feed our families and give ourselves some of the most healthy meat on the face of the earth. So definitely going to get into that more down the road. But want to jump in. It's that time of the podcast where I kind of give a little bit of a fishing report. What's going on in East Tennessee? I know it's hunting season. We're all geared toward hunting. This spring, we'll make the transition and focus more on fishing. But now, just a quick little fishing report. I went a couple weeks ago, and didn't do that great. I heard a lot of good reports around the state, but I struggled. I think there was a front coming in, and it for some reason had just shut those fish off. However, I did have some luck catching smallmouth. I caught 4 smallmouth, all on a white swim jig. That was essentially, and the places that I was catching these fish were on bluff wall type deals, vertical up and down rock walls with deep water very, very close. And
What are you catching them on?
just a little swim, a 3/16 ounce swim jig, and I just put a little piece of white Zoom pork on the back of it, and then I'll get fairly close to the bank, and what I do is I just go down the bank flipping in each of the little cracks in the bluff wall, and I was getting a few bites. I had a couple good ones get off, but I think it was 3 or 4 in the boat, and yeah, but it wasn't set up the way that I thought it was going to be set up, because a lot of times the fall transition, these bait fish, they go to the backs of pockets and they ball up. I don't know exactly scientifically why they do it. I just know that they do it. And a lot of times it's because the winter drawdown condenses all the bait fish. Like all the bait fish, when the lake is at full pull, is kind of separated out because there's more surface and more water. And then when they start dropping that water in the winter, those fish get more and more condensed. And a lot of times you can really catch them, but it really wasn't set up yet the way that I like it. But I'm hearing reports around the state again of people catching fish. Talked to a couple guys that were on Lake Guntersville last weekend, and they were catching some of the biggest crappie you've ever seen in your life. I mean, they were like 2 and 3 pound crappie, like giants. Like those. That's the type of crappie I want to catch.
Pretty large crappie.
Yeah. So they're, but and apparently on Guntersville here in pre-spring, you can go down there and catch 5 pound bass all day long, which we need to try out. Is all I have to say. But the bait fish is condensing. The bite's going to get better and better until it turns into the winter period, and then we're going to be using super finesse techniques. A style that two main styles when this winter rolls around that we catch them on. We catch smallmouth all winter here in East Tennessee. What?
I'm just watching Brett do this.
Brett is nodding his head in agreement. But the 2 main techniques that we're going to be using this winter is one we call tight line, which we use a 4 pound test line, and they will not bite 6 pounds. So you got to use 4. Don't understand really what that's about, but
it's like trout fishing.
Yeah, and then we use a technique that has become really popular called the Namiki rig, where essentially we use our electronics to locate these schools of smallmouth, and then we drop vertically on top of their head and can usually catch a few. I've got a video of the Namiki fishing on my channel, so go check it out.
And that's your fishing report with Ribbon Lips TV.
And that is Ribbon Lips TV's fishing report for the week. Probably going to hunt this weekend, but definitely going to get back on the water here in the next week or two because I am itching. But all right, guys, that's 47 minutes. You guys want to add anything? Is there anything that we missed or left out? I know I wanted to get into the tiger discussion, but I'm just going to do it real quick. Because I've got to tell this story. There was a tiger in India that had killed 13 people in the course of 2 years, and they literally mounted a military operation to find this tiger. I was reading the article, and I don't know how accurate it was, but it was the New York Times, and they were talking about these scientists who were mounting elephants, riding through the jungle with dart guns, looking for this tiger. And the thing that finally got it to come out of hiding was Calvin Klein cologne.
What?
They used this Calvin Klein cologne to attract this tiger, and these hunters shot and killed the tiger that killed 13 people. But the main thing was there was a little bit of issue with them killing this tiger, but it had killed 13 people, and I just want to put this into context. If a person had killed 13 people in the last 2 years,
we gonna kill him.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave that at that. But this tiger took down 13 people before they were able to bring it down. Those things are deadly. The tiger population in India is as high as it's ever been. The tiger population is growing, and there's going to be concern about interaction with these tigers and these villagers, and are we going to allow the people in India to defend themselves? That's going to be the debate.
Right. So the important distinction here is that we're not necessarily promoting the hunting of tigers. We're just saying that the management of the tigers that exist should be allowed and not be criticized by people who don't live there.
Yeah.
If
boots on the ground, people, let's try not to be armchair quarterbacks, and
allow the people that live there to manage the things that they're dealing with. If you've got an animal, a 600-pound cat that is killing people and has killed 13 over the course of 2 years,
that's a problem.
Chances are you're going to want that cat gone, You know, again, this is one tiger, and I think I read that article, and I think that the population of the tiger something around 2,500.
2,500 shot up to
Yeah.
2,500 in India.
Yeah.
India has become the most populated tiger haven
Region.
Yeah, and a fun fact: before India was the highest tiger population, Texas had the highest tiger population. There were more tigers in captivity in Texas than in all the wild of the world before this has been 10 years ago, but the tiger population in India has thrived because of wildlife management. And
It's good.
Yeah, no, and that's an important thing to say. Sorry, Brett, go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah, keep going.
The important thing to say there is that this is a direct result of wildlife management. It's a direct result of what we consider to be conservation.
yes,
Yeah, when you conserve the resources and you protect the animals that are there, the population is allowed to grow. But occasionally, especially when you have a problem, you have to handle the problem.
you have to
And
remind these predators that.
Well, it's the
don't
same
wanna
as when they reintroduced into Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And
there's
now
there's a big debate that going on about that right now. I definitely want to get into that probably next week. That would be a really good topic, is the bear hunt in the area surrounding Yellowstone. It's not necessarily Yellowstone, it's the big land mass that is around Yellowstone that nobody really knows who owns it. So we'll get into that next week, but we're at 52 minutes, and I think we need to wrap this thing up. Does anybody have any closing comments?
Train. Don't forget to train. Go to jujitsu.
yeah.
Shoot your guns.
Just do things that you just do it right. I think that's our ending mantra that we go with. Do it right. That's our
Do it right.
do it right. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.